Okay, and so we are live, and this is the January session of the New Hampshire GEG. So I'm going to go right here, and I'm going to start off by introducing our panelists. So right here we have below Craig Scheel, as always, coming in from Bedford. And we're going to be talking tonight about Google Sites. We also will be having Mary Murata will be joining us later. And tonight's spotlight speaker is Jenn Judkins. And Jenn Judkins is joining us in from Massachusetts. And you didn't get a lot of snow down there, did you, Jenn?
No, just a lot of wet, cold stuff.
Okay, and a lot of you are chiming in from home. Maybe you had a snow day, or maybe you were wishing you had a snow day. So tonight we're going to have a conversation about the new Google Sites. Some of you may have tried it, some of you may have not. And Jenn's going to share some of the information on it. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Jenn Judkins. Jenn Judkins works as a digital learning coordinator in the Linfield Public Schools. She is a Google for Education trainer, a MassCUE Pathfinder, and a 2015 PBS Lead Digital Innovator. She also runs a lot of great events in Massachusetts, such as the Google Palooza, which she'll be mentioning later today, the Winter Google Palooza, and she'll be talking about that later on. And I've also done some training. I've been very fortunate to be able to do some training with Jennifer in places down in Massachusetts, and that's been just wonderful experience. And it was kind of funny how Jenn and I started training together on the fly. It was a great adventure and just a great opportunity for me. So she's going to share some of her resources with each of you tonight. So I'm going to go ahead now. And Jenn, are you ready? I'm going to go ahead and switch over controls to Jenn. And here's Jenn Judkins, and we're going to talk about the new Google site. Oh, and I see Mary just joined us. Hi, Mary.
Hi, how are you?
We're getting a tour from through somewhere, Mary, I can see.
I'm running down in my family room to get away from the other people in my house so that they're not.
It's funny you say that, Jenn. I actually just texted Mary saying, thanks for the tour.
So yeah, I'll just let me share my screen so that we can be looking at the same thing together. I thought we would start with talking about just even how you access the new Google Sites, because I think a lot of people are clicking on the app's waffle and wondering how to get to sites. If you click on the waffle, you're going to end up most likely in the older Google Sites location. It was funny because I had told some of our teachers that there was a new Google Sites platform, and they went to use it, and they were like, it doesn't seem any different. And I didn't realize that I had forgotten to tell them how to access the new sites. And that's because the new sites is going to coexist for probably about a year alongside what I am going to refer to as classic sites. And that means that teachers who have existing sites don't need to worry. They're not going anywhere. The sites that they designed previously, Google has indicated that there will be some way to move your stuff over, but no, nothing on that yet. And really, I think when you see how simple and user-friendly it is to work with the new sites interface, a lot of teachers I know are not waiting for that, that sort of tool that might port things over. They're just building a new site from scratch because it's so much easier to work with, and they didn't want to have to wait to kind of refresh their existing Google Sites. So to access the new Google Sites, I think there's kind of two ways. If you go into the Sites menu as you might have previously, either by visiting sites.google.com or through the apps launcher, this little waffle looking thing on the top right in your Chrome window. Right underneath on the left-hand side, there's an indication that you can access the new Google Sites. And the other way, and the way that I typically access sites, is through Google Drive. So in much the way you would create a new file, now you can say new up here on the top left, and then mouse down to more, and then Sites is one of your choices. And this Sites here will bring you to the new Sites interface. So that's how I typically access sites. And the other thing that means is that your sites are essentially accessed and saved in your, as part of your Google Drive, so you can see them in there. And I think before I show you how to build a site, I might just take you to peek at one that I designed. Let me just see. I'll go to this other account here. So this is an example of a site that I made in the new Google Sites interface. So there's a what I think is really wonderful is that you can look at how, when you're previewing your site, you can see how it looks on different devices. So the new sites platform is responsive, meaning that regardless of what type of device someone is viewing it on, it will display clearly and adjust to that type of device. I think most of us are familiar with going to websites that don't seem mobile friendly, and the classic Google Sites was not. So in this example, if I toggle from a computer screen view to a phone view or a tablet view, you can see on the little preview screen, excuse me, how the website adjusts to the different viewing device that I use. So I think that's a really welcome update that is available. And then of course the page itself, you can see that I've incorporated some different icons that are clickable. We'll talk more about how to do that when you're designing websites. And the text can be hyperlinked as well. So you can hyperlink or make pictures clickable to access different things, as well as make text clickable. And you can of course insert images, and in this example I've inserted an awesome table, which is a great tool that's available to take Google spreadsheet data and make it more of an interactive interface. So what I'm going to do is, now that we've looked at just an example, we'll go in and talk about how you would build something like this and what the features are of Google Sites. Jen, I'm assuming that you are able to see the chat window, and if there are questions as we go through, you just can let me know.
Yes, absolutely.
Perfect.
And Jen, before you move on, if you don't mind going back to your sample that you just showed us, what I really like on your main page there is I appreciate the fact that I think it helps make sites look more dynamic, all about design. I like how you've made, I assume you made those buttons and the colors, and you've made them clickable. I just feel like this new Google Sites, as you said, very refreshing and updates, and it's just more visually appealing than the class, as you're calling the classic. And I just think, I'm more apt to gravitate to something that you've designed there, as opposed to the old classic. So I'm excited to learn and see what you're going to share.
Yeah, and I think teachers feel really excited when they first start working with it, because, as you mentioned, Craig, you get something that looks really good without a lot of effort. So the concept behind the new sites is very similar to using things like Weebly, where it's a drag and drop interface. And incorporating elements like this with icons and matching the color is something that I'd love to show folks. It's not really a Google thing, but I think when you're designing web pages, it's nice to know about how you can color match, which is an important thing to be able to do. And in this case, I wanted to color match the logo of this organization with the icon choices that I made. And so I will share how to do that, because it's not hard, and it does make things look more professional when you can do that. So I designed these images with a couple tools and then brought them in as images. And then, because you can hyperlink images, you can click on any one of these and move into different pages. And again, in terms of the visual appeal, there's these bands that you can see, these color bands. We'll show you how to make those, where you have sort of an accent color behind, so that as you're scrolling down a page, it's not all white background or all blue background. There's some variation in the page coloring, so that it helps to break apart visually the page itself, so that it's a little easier to navigate and to see, to highlight different parts of the content on the page. The navigation up at the top too, you can see I have the ability to design drop-down navigation. That was probably, I don't know about you guys, but that was my favorite thing to see with the new sites. Creating navigation in the classic sites was something that no matter how many times I did it, I kept having to, you know, like try to figure it out each time because it wasn't intuitive, and I just could not for the life of me remember how to do it from one site I would make to the next, because it was just really clunky. And this, wait till you see how easy this is. I think people will be really pleased. So let me just switch back here. So I've just gone into Drive, I've said new and chosen more sites to get into the new sites template. And basically what you're seeing here is on the right-hand side, I have a toolbar. And that toolbar, that toolbox has 3 different categories. There's an insert, which is what I'm toggled on now. Pages will give me a different, this is where I set up my navigation. And then themes is where I set the look of my page. Keeping in mind, folks, as we look at the new sites, that Google is doing what they always do, which is to launch something that is, you know, not fully developed. It's ready to go and perfect for teachers to use, but there might be some features that you're not going to see yet that you are accustomed to having in the classic sites, but I suspect that all those things will come along. Just as they've continued to develop things like Google Classroom from its inception, I expect sites will continue to develop. But I think that you'll see that even as it is now in this fairly new form, it's so easy to use and very user-friendly. So the first thing you'd want to do is name your site. So you would click in the site name area, and I'm just going to call this, maybe I'll call this New Hampshire GEG here for our topic that we're covering. And then you'll see that that'll appear at the top of corner of your page. Then the page title here is really the title for this page as opposed to the site. So the site title is in the top left. The page title is right here. And I'm just going to call this home. Or I could call this welcome. Right here in my text box, I can change from title, heading, and subheading, and normal text. And what this does is it changes the font size and sometimes the font color. I can change my alignment here. And I could also hyperlink the text depending on what I'm doing. So the banner at the top and the style of this is based on the theme. So I'm actually going to start by going into the themes area of my toolbox on the right. And just to show you some of the different themes available, and we can toggle back into here after we put some content on the page. So with the themes, again, you don't have as many choices. They've actually added a few since they launched, but still relatively limited. But again, if you think back to the example that I showed you earlier, you can add any background that you want. So if you look like at this, you'll notice that I actually added my own image here for the header. So you can do that as well. This template is just giving you some canned options. The font style can be chosen from this list. Again, not a huge list, but they're picking some nice complementary colors and fonts so that you have a nice looking page. So I'll just start with this as an example. All right, so I'm going to go back to insert so that I can start putting content into my page. So first thing you may want to do is change this, this header type. So if I click header type, I can change the size of the banner to large or title only. And so the title only would make that disappear. But the thing that I think most people would probably want to know to do is that you can change the image. And if I change the image, it gives me a variety of images to pick from that are canned images that I could just use. So I might just pick this one. But I could also import my own image. So I just grabbed one here and it put it in, but I could also choose my own image from Google Drive. I don't know if you saw this, but when I brought the picture in, these little stars kind of started blinking here in the bottom right-hand corner of this banner area. And those stars said adjusting for readability. And what happens with that is if the picture comes in with a certain, a certain contrast to the font, it will adjust it so that if I bring in, for example, a dark image, it will make sure my font is light enough to stand out against the dark image and vice versa. So it, without me having to adjust the coloring of the image, it will actually do that on its own to either lighten or darken the image so that I get a nice contrast between the text that I've written here and the picture. So there's a lot of that that's going to happen in the new sites where you drag in things and it will adjust so that it will fit well, not only in your view, but also we talked about when you're toggling between different types of devices. One of the things that's hard for people to understand is that a website can look really good on your computer, on your screen, and then you look over someone's shoulder and they have a different size screen and a different resolution, and suddenly it doesn't look right. So the new sites is more responsive and going to be able to appear cleanly on any screen type. So part of that is this readability adjustment that you'll be seeing. So once I'm satisfied with my header, I can start adding content. So you typically would do that by adding text boxes. So when I click text box, it's going to allow me to, again, like before, choose the type here. And when I go to another line, it's going to default back to normal text. And so if I want to change, again, the center of the text or put in, bullets or anything, I can do that here. So if I wanted to make a list, I might do this and have the bulleted list show up. All right. So when you're finished adding content, perhaps you want to add a picture that would go with this. So if I'm adding an image, I might grab an image that I need to save. So I'm going to save this image. Oh, I'll add it to my desktop here. And then I can, so you can't drag images into sites. You would have to pull them from either, when you click on images, you could actually do them by URL. Maybe I'll just do that. That'll be easier. So here I can just grab this link for the image. And I can add, you'll notice I can upload from my computer. If you're on a Chromebook, you can also, it would upload from Google Drive, but Google Drive is also an option here on my desktop computer. I can do a search. So this is very much like in Google Docs, how the search works. So I can put in the link and grab it that way. So when it brings my picture in, I get the handlebars, probably really familiar to those of you who use Google Docs regularly. I can pull the corner. Remember, you always want to drag from a corner, but it's actually gonna, when I pull from the corner, it actually allows me to go either direction. So if you're, so when you're dragging your image, if you hold the shift key down while you're dragging, it will maintain the proportions. Let me just explain that again. Normally, when you grab from a corner, it won't allow you to sort of shrink the image or mess up with the proportions. But in sites, it is flexible where no matter where you're grabbing from, it follows the movement of your cursor. So if I want to maintain my proportions, if I hold the shift key down while I'm dragging, then it will maintain the proportions of the image. But once I have my image, right now it's popped into the second box, but I can drag it, and you'll notice when I'm dragging it has a little line that was showing up. See that? And so when I drag my image, I have some options. I can shrink this text box down. I can increase the size of my image here. And already I have this first area of my page done. You'll notice when I was dragging there, I don't know if it shows up on the screen, Craig, if you guys can see the lines that are there.
Yes.
Okay, So these are different sections of the page. So what is essentially happening under the hood here is that the website itself, the design is kind of chopped up into little chunks, these different areas of the page. So when you're trying to add a picture or text box, you'll notice when I move it, it's going to jump from this line to the next line. It's going to fit within an area, but you can't move it like incrementally. It's gonna move it so that it fits into a particular little section, a part of that grid that's forming the backbone of the page. And again, that's because of the fact that it's doing all this adjusting and responsiveness for you. So that's something that throws people off a little bit if you haven't seen that before. But now that I have my first section here, I could add another text box if I wanted to. And so if I wanted to add some information here, I can of course link. I could link a email address, right, or a website. So let me just grab, Jen, do you have a site that you use I can put on here, or what's the, let me just see. So you could link another another site here, and you would highlight your text and then insert a link, and you would put that on here, right here, and it would make the text linkable. One of the things I wanted to show you is how to change the coloring behind. So you'll notice right now I have my white text box. Let me show you what it looks like in preview mode. So up at the top of the page, there's a little eyeball, a preview. And if I hit that, it will show me what it looks like full screen on, again, I can toggle through these different devices. So I can see, so for example, on a cell phone, on a smartphone, this text box would appear and then the image would be below it. So it gives you an idea of what the look of it would be on other devices. And maybe I want to change the background. Maybe I want to, I'm going to change maybe this text to something different. But if I want to change the background like I did on that example, so remember we looked at this example, and on this example I have different backgrounds. So I have like a white background here and a blue background here. So that is easy to do. On the left-hand side, there is a color palette. And if you click that color palette, the defaults here, there's regular, emphasis 1, emphasis 2. So if I click emphasis 1 here, for example, see how it turned it all this blue color. Or if I want to do emphasis 2, it makes it a darker blue. So these are some different options I could go and toggle between. I actually use this to do like a footer on my site. So like on this page, you'll see that I have like the contact information, the mailing address and phone number. And that is just a text box that I use that darker head, that darker background for, and it makes it look like a footer on the site.
Very
So
cool.
you can use these in different ways to make your site look just that much more professional, because that just means that that box is at the bottom. But if I wanted to reposition these boxes, if I want to move the content around, if I move my mouse onto the box over on the side here, you'll notice when I mouse over, I get that move, my mouse changes into the move icon here. So I can reorder the position of things. And again, looking at how the item moves, if I change it, see how I've got that darker blue underline underneath? That's showing where it's going to go. So moving content around the page is so easy. So I could move this. I can make this bigger. So the ability to reorder and reorganize your content is just so smooth on this new sites platform. I think teachers will really love that. So adding content to the page, that's just a basic adding text and adding images. Images, of course, can be hyperlinked too, which is one of my favorite things. That's how I handled the navigation on this site. So I do have the top navigation, but I like having more like a button navigation. And these are just images, and these images are clickable and take you to different parts of the site. So you can do the same thing here on this site if you dragged in different images, and you could line them up side by side and make them clickable by adding a hyperlink to the images. You can also crop your image, and you can zoom in your image. There's a couple little features here that you can use too to do some basic image editing right in the site. And then you can also upload content or embed URLs. I will tell you that I've had mixed success with embedding URLs. It seems to depend on the content itself. So like if I go to Newsela, which is one of my favorite resources for teaching reading and differentiating nonfiction articles, if I had an article here that I wanted to embed, so just as an aside, if you've never used Newsela before, you can change the reading level by checking off on the right-hand side the Lexile number, and it will change the article. Even the title changes. It changes the text complexity and word count to make it more accessible to different reading levels of students. So if I wanted to embed that as a resource, I might want to add a text box and call it reading resources. And maybe I'll put in a bullet here. And maybe I want to put in the URL. So I'll paste in the link to that article. You'll notice how it embedded it. It's got a little picture right here, and I can choose add. I might even decide that I'm going to scoot that right next to here. So if I preview the page, which I like to do periodically just so I can kind of keep track of how things are going, then I can hit this eyeball here to see what it looks like for everyone else. And if I want to know how the user interacts with this, if I click on this, it will launch me to that page. So embedding means that you get a little mini picture, the website link, and it's clickable. It depends. It seems to depend on what the site is. Some sites won't do this. You won't get a nice picture, and so it's a little bit different than putting in like the HTML code. You'll notice that when you're embedding, you're putting a link. I think for folks that have done embedding before, you're used to embedding with HTML code, which is different. And so I think this is a lot more accessible to teachers. Most teachers would glaze over with the concept of embedding with HTML, so I like this, but you may possibly run into websites that don't, that aren't talking friendly to this, this embed option with the link. So I'm also going to grab this link and make this text linkable just as an example. And now I have linked text and my picture. So this is some of your options for adding different content to your page. You can also embed from YouTube here, and calendar and map. I've actually used all of these things. You can only embed from YouTube, so videos from other sites can't be embedded. So a workaround from that would be you could try to see if the link would work. So if you were on a site like Vimeo, you might see if you could get the link to work, but honestly, I'm not even sure why. So I would need a link to an actual, okay, I'm not going to bother with that right now. But I know that I've tried to put in links to other sites, and I don't always get a little preview. Sometimes this is just a blank picture at the top, and then just a link to the page. So you could try to link to other sites, but just be prepared that it may or may not work. You can also embed, so right down here it has docs and slides and sheets and all this. This, you can embed this type of content. So maybe I want to embed from Google Docs. It's going to navigate into my drive. And so maybe I want to embed this resource. And so, but again, you notice that it's not fitting on the page right. So I might want to expand that. Normally when I embed content like that, I would also put like the words there. I might say what it is so people could just click easily. But when you preview it, see how it's loading it in this little window? And so I can certainly scroll, even though it's multiple pages, I'm able to scroll. It's just that the window size that I set in the site's editor here, that's how much, that's the viewable area. So putting it in like this and previewing it helps you to see that you don't need to drag that to be the size of the entire document. It's going to have a little sidebar in there, and people will be able to view the entire document. And there's a little pop-out choice where they can launch that into its own page. So most people would probably end up doing that. So that's kind of the content adding options. You can add a Google Drive and Google Drive folder. Just be aware if you're adding things like docs or sheets or any Drive content that you need to make sure that the view permissions are set to anyone with the link can view. So sticking it into a Google Sites is not enough if you have not shared it properly, because people will just see a blank page and it will say you need permission. So if you're adding any of this type of content from Drive, just be sure that when you're looking at the share permissions, that you click advanced, and here where it says private, which is default, you would change this to anyone with the link, and then you would grab the link to the folder or to the file, and then you can put it in the site, no problem. So any questions that you're seeing, folks, before we take a look at how to set up the page navigation?
Nope, you're looking good right now.
Okay, excellent. So I think in terms of adding content, these are some nice options to play around with, but let's take a look at how you would add additional pages and how you would organize those in the site's navigation. So to add an additional page, I'm going to click on Pages, and then from here I can add a page. So when I add a new page, maybe I'll add a resources page. And maybe I'm going to add another page called Contact. And maybe within my resources page, maybe I want to add like Google resources. And maybe I want another page that would be like web tools, like other than Google. So right now, they're all showing up on equal footing. So they're all showing up at the same level on my site. If I preview my site, you can see I have these showing up, and they might not even be the order that I want them. They just show up initially in the order that you add them. So maybe I want to reorder these so that maybe contact's the last thing I want. So kind of similar to moving the content on the page where we moved our mouse over to the left till our icon changes to the move cursor. I can do that here. So I'm going to move this contact down, and that will reorder that for my page navigation. And then the way to nest or to place something underneath another page. So like this resources page is my top level, and I would like to put Google resources and web tools resources underneath resources. So to do that, I actually have to click and drag until, watch what happens. Do you see the color change that happened with the line right there? I'm going to let go now, and you see this little bar that's kind of pointing over, and you can see how it changed up here. So I'm going to do that again with web tool resources. I'm going to move my mouse. I'm going to drag this up to resources until I get that line that's letting me know that if I drop it, it's going to be nested underneath. And then those pages are nested underneath the resources tab, which is what I wanted. So you cannot nest 3 layers down. You can only do 2. So I can have the top level, and then I can have this. So I can't nest like a Google Docs resources and Google Slides resources underneath Google resources. That would be like 3 levels deep. So right now you can't do that. A workaround for that would be kind of the format I showed you earlier, which is to use icons as a way to get people to navigate to different parts of the site, and that might work for you. So
I'm not gonna lie, I didn't know you could do a subpage like that. I don't think that's very intuitive.
I agree with you. I think people try to drag it and they're like, I don't know, I moved it and it just like popped there.
Correct.
That one took a while to figure out too.
If I didn't see you do that, Jen, I'm not gonna lie, I wouldn't have known that you could do that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah, you have to, right,
Yeah.
'cause you just have to get it in just the right spot to even see that symbol change. And I think, Jen, a lot of us just kind of found it by, you know, monkeying around, and then I was like, wait a minute, what's this? But yeah.
Exactly what you said. I was dragging them and changing the order, and when I was changing the order, I went, oh, what is it doing? I went, oh, look at that.
Yes.
Can I ask one other question?
Yes.
When you do that, Jen, and you, so if you're going to move contacts, and let's say you want it to be a subpage of resources, and you go all the way to the top, that's going to be the first subpage in, right? So now, can you move that inside of that? You can.
Yep.
Okay. You have to first say you want it a subpage, and then you move it.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and then you just pull it out like I just did. So if I put it in the middle, it'll go. It actually, you don't have to move it twice, Craig, because if I go to move it, see how
right.
See?
Gotcha. Okay.
So it will let me.
Okay.
And I think, you know, just as an aside but related topic, when you're going to do a website, most people would be better, you know, would be well served by not even going into the platform they're using, but first to sort of think about, well, who's my audience and what do I, you know, what are the things that I need to have on my site and how do I want it organized? So before you even open up and start playing with sites, you should have, you know, whether you're using sticky notes to figure this out or just a piece of scratch paper, but what is your navigation going to look like? You know, come up with your navigation scheme, because that's really kind of helping you to know, you know, what time, you know, what's the way that you're planning on organizing the content, and that'll help you as you're adding content. So the navigation, the other thing you can do is these 3 dots on the left. If you click on those, this allows you, and I think this is really great too, this allows you to hide a page from navigation, but it still can be visited. So this to me is the good workaround. If you want to go, like again, under Google Resources, you wanted multiple subpages for the different Google apps, but you can't get that extra layer of navigation in there. Like it can't go from Resources to Google Drive, you know. Then I could make a page called Google Drive. I could hide that in my navigation, meaning it won't show up here at the top, but I could have a Google Drive icon picture and link that to that page. So that's kind of a way that you can work around having being limited to the too deep navigation like that.
If you hide it, does it, so like let's say you hide contacts.
Yeah.
But you still, okay, my worry was, so how can you edit that if you hide it? Okay. Yep.
So if I preview it, then I'm seeing this is the link that I can just grab and use.
Sure.
Yep.
Sure.
So, great
Perfect.
question. And it shows you pretty clearly, so you can see when you're looking at your navigation that it's hidden. So the other thing that you can do is you can rename the page and then you can set as homepage. And I actually had to use this recently because I had created a website with teacher resources in my district for professional, like around teacher portfolios that they create. And then our new curriculum director said, oh, well, I wanted to create a resources page, but it seems silly for us to each have our own. Maybe I could just have pages on the same site. So then my homepage really needed to change so that it reflected sort of the dual purpose of the site. So that was really nice because some websites, you can't reset the homepage. I mean, I've worked with a lot of web platforms and you can't always do that. So it's nice that you can designate a different homepage at any point. So that's the navigation, and that's how you would set this up. And then in terms of editing, you click on the page and then you would toggle back into this menu for insert and also to themes to change the look and to add content to your site. So once you've kind of gotten your site together and you've added your content, then the question is, how do you share it with the world? And so we talked about previewing it, which is a great thing to do throughout the process to make sure that your site looks the way that you think it's supposed, that you know that you're envisioning it looking with other people. But then you need to be able to publish it. So let's talk about those choices. First of all, this button right here, this share button that you're used to seeing, you'll notice when you mouse over it, it says add editors. So adding editors is different than publishing. This would mean that you're inviting people to develop the website with you, which is great. Google Sites is like all of the other Google tools in that the real magic behind these tools is the collaboration piece. And so since students and teachers can create pages, you can have kids working in groups on websites, and so they would create a site and share it with their peers to be able to work together on a project. When you're ready to publish, you would hit the publish button, and then what you have to do is it will have your website will have this first part, which is based on whatever, you know, it would be linfield.k12 in school, whatever your school address is, or this is my my personal address. But then you need to make sure that you do two things here. The very first time you have to name your page. So even though you think that you named it up here in the top corner, this threw me off at first, it doesn't auto fill that in. I have to type in whatever I want to call it. So now that I've named the page here, you do also want to pay attention to who can visit your site. So we've given it an address here, but we need to make sure that it's visible to people. So I would need to switch from the default, which is basically your domain, to anyone on the web. So I'm going to do that. And you can choose to have your site appear on search results. And then you would publish the site. All right. So now that I've done that, if I click this little down arrow here next to publish, I can look at my published settings, which is where I just was. I can view the published site, which is the live site where I can get the link and share it with other people. But I could also unpublish the site. One thing I do want to tell people or just point out, because it is a little bit different from the classic sites, is if I were to make changes now, so I've published my site, but maybe I start making some changes here, and I go to look at my site in the preview. I can see it, it looks normal. But then I actually go and view the published site. You'll notice that it did not change what I had on the screen. So I changed this heading from home to welcome. And the reason is that when you make changes to your Google Sites in the new platform, you must hit the publish button for those changes to apply. So it does save them if I were to walk away, if I were to leave this browser window or shut off my computer. It does save the changes, but those changes are not live to the web until or unless I hit this publish button. And now when I come back here and refresh, it's going to apply that change. So that's something that throws people off, because you spend time developing your website, you preview it, it looks some way, and then you look at it later and you wonder, why doesn't it look the same as I'm seeing it? And that's because you need to publish each and every time to see the website in its, you know, with all the changes applied.
And I think as long as people remember that, just like classic version, you had to hit save when you put stuff in a
you had to hit save, right?
Yeah. So
right. And this, you know, in a sense, auto saves, but just doesn't auto publish. So just something to be aware of. On the three dots here, you can send feedback. This is also something you can do on the bottom left-hand corner. Much like some of their other tools, when you hit send feedback, it'll ask you to draw on the screen, like frame out where on the screen you're experiencing a problem or anything. And you can also take a tour here And there are site analytics, which I have not played with yet. I haven't used those, and there wouldn't be anything to look at on this site. I wonder, I haven't even done that before. I didn't. Let me see if I can look at it here. So yeah, that is kind of a quick and dirty overview of sites. I'm going to go check and see if I can see the analytics, because I'm kind of curious about that. Just to see what that looks like. I'm assuming there's data, and I don't know if it uses Google Analytics, but so site analytics. Oh, okay. So here I would have to put in the analytics tracking. So I don't have that registered for this one, and then you'd have to attach that, and it would only be after you attach this tracking ID that it would track your analytics over time. So can't really show you that, but that looks like something they've added recently, because I don't recall that being there before. All right.
Okay.
So that is the tour.
Well, that was awesome, Jen. I grabbed a few things from you that I was playing around today going, how do I do that? And I was like, oh, that's how you do it. Just like, yeah, I was like, oh, I knew there was a way to do that. I will say the one thing, and I don't know if the others can jump in, and I think it's because it's like Classroom, where they're bringing in bits, or when they did the new forms and they're bringing in bits at a time. One of the big ones I've gotten is, why can't we add an external link to the navigation, whether it's side or top? And I think just some of those pieces are coming. And yes, you can add an external link, obviously, in the page content and buttons, or you can do a custom header that in Google Draw, and of course,
right.
But so things like that. Have you heard? What about the others? Do you agree, or do you think they're just coming in? Or I think that's also, like you said, Jen, I like the take you had that. Well, you also have to think that the new design, yes, some features are changed. It might be different than you're used to, but it's going towards a more responsive design. So you can't quite get the picture over where you want, but you have to think that someone may be on the phone that's this small. And so they're making it so that it will rearrange nicely when they switch to their phone or whatever it is.
Right. I think what's so great about it is, you know, you don't have to be a web page designer to get a good looking page. And although Google Sites was free and collaborative, let's be honest, it was ugly. It was really hard to get a good looking site, you know. And I feel like this is not a problem that people will have here, is making a good looking site is much more accessible to people. And there's always this delicate balance between feature rich and friendly to users. And so I think they've found a nice balance between having an adequate number of features, but kept it basic enough that it's user friendly. I mean, if you are like a heavy lifter when it comes to web design, you're probably not using Google Sites. You're probably going to another platform. But for teachers and students, I think that this is a really nice option and much more user friendly than what was available before. The other thing is you get a free website, but you could do a redirect like what I've done. So with that Salem Collaborative Project site, it's a Google site, but it's redirected. So I just can, you can buy your own domain name and direct it to that Google site too.
Perfect. Okay.
Yeah,
so,
and I think my only, sorry, Jen, my only concern, and I know I'm not the only one, like our entire high school website is built on a Google site.
Oh,
and,
right.
Lots of time and energy was spent to making it not look like a Google site. And so that, obviously we haven't jumped ship. We're still using the old version, or the classic version, as Judkins was talking about. But so that's, let's hope and keep our fingers crossed that that will be a nice transition, or as smooth as possible, I guess.
Right. And
that's the other concern.
Like a lot of us put in custom Twitter gadgets that we created and so forth, and not the ones that come out of the box, but we uploaded custom. In fact, I was going to show one in a second. And some of those things, will those still work? Will those things, I know exactly what you're. So we haven't jumped over because we're checking it, we're trying it, but for the same reason that we're worried about all that we put so special.
Yeah, the Twitter gadget thing, I'm like, that should be something that they're bringing in, but I haven't seen that yet. And I actually have heard mixed reviews about that. There have been some people from Google that have said, no, it's not happening. And then other people saying, you know, that's not possible. You've got to do that. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen with that. They have made it seem like they're not planning on doing that, but that's one of the areas that people have been kind of making a bit of a stink about. So maybe they will change the plan.
Okay, so I'm going to shift gears now, and I'm going to share my screen and make sure here. Okay, here we go. So hopefully right now you can see my screen. Can you all see right now Allison Malika's website?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Okay, so I'm going to share some resources, but before I do, I'm going to start right here with this document, and this is the agenda today, and I'm going to make that just a little bigger for a quick second so you can see it there. This is the link to the document with contact info, Twitter handles, and so forth, but also with the links to the resources and different examples that we've shown today that Jennifer's shown, and upcoming events and more. So I did want to share that link with you right there, so that way you can get to all those resources if you're watching, which a lot of our viewers watch after the fact, especially on a snowy day like today. So I've really been lucky that I've been able to work with people such as with Jen and with Craig and with Rachel and Jacqueline. But before I worked with any of them, one of the first people I worked with for quite a while, and I still love working with her when I get a chance, but she's all over the place now, and you just saw her website, is Allison. Allison Malika, I started working with her before I even became a Google trainer. She and I started working on some consulting together with the Manchester School District, and we worked together for quite a while. And she just is a great resource that I wanted to add, and I talked to her today about doing a little shout out with some of her resources. So if you just look up, really, if you look up Allison Malika and put in the word technology, her website will come up. It's right there. And if you go to Treasure Trove Training, and it should bring you right here to this site. She has an entire course on how to do Google Sites, just an entire course on it. And then she also has one that's called Sites for Everything. And it's really just different examples of all different sites out there from different schools and so forth. In fact, right there, there's the district that she and I first started working with. And this, that's why I'm more worried about the Twitter handles, because that's one of the districts where we set those up, both of us. So here's the Manchester School District, and two of the websites that, two of the four ones that she and I both started with, Parker Varney. I miss working with that school, awesome school. And we had created Twitter gadgets for both of these schools, and Goslar Park is the other. So we had created these custom Twitter gadgets. So it just shows just what they post and nothing else. And here we have, you can see it right there. And I have the directions to that, which I can put out, and I'll post it on the public document. So those are some of the sites that we had created a long time ago. It's like, well, you can't put things in there. No, you absolutely can. Now look at this site. It's gorgeous. And it started out a little plain, but it's just gorgeous now. And I have to say that it's gone way further than when I started doing it. Kelly Jobel is just a whiz over there, and she has been doing just an incredible job. But Allison is the one who really kind of got me into a lot of these little tricks and so forth with sites. And when I was doing the Twitter, I'm like, okay, there's got to be a way to do it. She's like, I've got it. And she found a great little resource on how to get that custom Twitter gadget to work just right on your website. So I just wanted to do a little shout out to her. And of course from there, because she does so much with apps events, if you're looking for any of great events happening in New England or around the world, I think there's one in Europe I really want to go to this fall. But anyway, you can click right here for apps events, and you can check out all the different events that are happening right here in apps events in the USA and in other countries and so forth. So I just want to do a little shout out to her, because she just has a great resource. And one of them that she's done recently in the new Google Sites, I'm going to jump to the top here. It's called Project Adopt a Country. She's been doing it for a while. And I love this because it's an example of doing a really integrated project. It's just a fully integrated, kind of like project-based learning, if you will, because it just integrates so many wonderful pieces across the curriculum into it. And she also incorporates all of these different tools into this project. And if you come up here, you'll see that she has what exactly they need to do. She has the different tasks for them. They bring in math. They bring in just so many different pieces into this project. So this is just a great resource. If you're looking for a project using Google Sites, Project Adopt a Country, and she's done it in the new site, she also has it in the old. It's just a great one to look at. And she just has some really good, I'm trying to find, let's see, here's one. She did a great one on timelines, and she has the students, they created timelines in Google Draw, and I'm trying to see if I can bring that up. And let's see, might be here. So she just does a great job with this project, all about how to do a project in Google Sites. So that's just a great example I wanted to show as well. So that was one thing, and the only other thing I was going to show, and then I'm going to flip over to Craig in the background there. Let's just jump right there. There is sometimes when I'm working on sites now, they have those little, you saw she had the little guidelines when you're popping things in, and she mentioned one thing. This is where I embedded content from a link, and you see there, instead of just the picture, it brought the whole article, and I didn't want the whole article. So she was absolutely right. It depends on the content. When you embed that URL, it depends on the content of the site you're bringing in. So right here, I got this entire, and I just wanted a quick little picture and the tagline. Well, I have the whole article. So it does depend on the content. But there's this great little tool I like to use, because I like to kind of align things a certain way and know where on the page you'll be, and it's called Page Ruler, and it really allows me to kind of like get a little more measurement or aligning things a little better on a website when I really couldn't before. So it kind of provides those grid lines, if you will, even when I can't get to it. So it's just a great Chrome extension to use when you're working with website design, whether it's Google Sites or another one. So that was one I want to share right there. But I think I'm going to turn it back now to Craig. And Craig, are you going to share with us some upcoming events?
Yeah, and do you have any questions that you wanted to ask before I do that real quick?
Yeah, so just some of the quick things. We have been using sites to make portfolios with students, and we've been taking baby steps, but we haven't actually jumped, just for the reasons that you've said, for teacher sites. So one of the things I constantly hear from teachers, we're hoping that there's some type of integration between Google Sites and Classroom, because people feel it's a lot of work to maintain your Google site for your parent interface versus your Classroom for student. And I guess we're hoping for some type of integration between the two to make it a little bit easier, so teachers don't have to maintain two areas of information. We have been using it for our digital photography classes, and I'm hoping maybe there's a better way when you bring in pictures, they remain flat. So I'm hoping that through Google Photos or creating an album. I don't know if anyone's played with that. So we have like a list of questions, like some of them you've mentioned, bringing in gadgets. Are there going to be templates that teachers can pick from? So I think we're waiting to hear a little bit more before teachers make the jump.
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay, so I need to share out the things that are coming up. So I know that it appears as though there's a couple things coming up in, hold on, let me share my screen. I didn't share my screen, folks. All right, so hold on. Okay. Are we good now? Oh, you see Jen, isn't that great? Okay, so there are a couple Google things, and as we speak, you can see Jen adding more stuff to the resources. Great. So there's MassCUE is offering a Google Palooza that is coming up on, I guess it's on February 22nd, or what is it, 22nd? Is that correct?
Yes.
Yes, Wednesday. It's in Pittsburgh, and I believe there's still seats. So if that's something you're interested, definitely check that out. There's also a boot camp that is happening in Stoneham, Massachusetts, and there is some information there as well. And I know that Jen just had talked about apps events doing a couple things. And Allison Malika actually posted this in our GEG Google Plus community. There is although it looks like it expired, there was an early bird registration to get a discount on that. Milford, New Hampshire is offering a boot camp on February 27th and 28th. And then it appears as though Hampton, where Jenn works, is potentially going to have one as well. We just don't know dates yet for that. So that's the stuff coming up. And if you haven't followed us on the Google Plus community, please do search GEG New Hampshire. You'll see it right here. And, you know, we tend to post things there, and we ask others to post information as well, things that we all want to learn about. And that's all I have. Jenn, what did I miss? Oh, maybe.
Am I back?
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, good. Whew. That's all I have. Jenn, what did I miss?
I think we both got knocked out at the same time.
All right. All right. Maybe.
Am I back?
Oh, there we go. Yeah. Okay, good. Whew. That's all I have. Jenn, what did I miss?
I think we both got knocked out at the same time.
All right. All right. Maybe.
Okay. There we go. Yeah, we had a little blip over here too, and it could be the weather is what I'm thinking. Am I back again or am I lost? Oh no.
You're good.
No, you're good. You're good.
Whew. Yeah, I think it's the weather because all of a sudden I could see everything kind of blip, and I went, uh-oh, here we go. So, so thank you everyone for joining us today. I think we're at the end of time, and I'm not sure because I was knocked out for a brief second, but I believe that Craig was sharing the upcoming events.
I think I did. I think we're all set.
I think so too. And as always, it's always so much fun to join in with you, Craig. And now you, Mary, you've become our regular joining in with us all the time.
It's been great.
And he's like, Mary joined. I'm like, great. I love when Mary joins in. And thank you, Jennifer.
And thank you. You did a great job presenting. That was very informative.
Oh, great.
Yeah, thank you, Jennifer. A big thank you to Jenn Judkins from teachingforward.net for joining us today. And I hope that if you have any questions, just contact us. You have the document and the link online. So if any questions, and we'll see you all again in the February NHGEG. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.